Shalom, shalom. Welcome to PRAGMAGICK. I am Keats Ross, and I am very honored today to have the brilliant dark artist himself, Mr. Chet Zar. Chet, it is so good to talk to you mano a mano. I know I've been following your work for forever. I know many of our viewers will be excited to see you too. So yeah, thank you for joining me, man.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I was
Uh,
trying to surmise kind of a bio in the back of my head, before this, but what I love about your stuff, and I kind of share this wealth of like interest in kind of trans medium creation, it's hard to delineate because you're always, to me, there's like a beautiful, like modern jobbing artist aspect, but it's also you're following your muse through everything. So there's that great, like, pragmatic magic, forgive me
mhm.
for using the pun or the portmanteau, but you're like it's delineated in that. And your conversations on the Dark Art podcast, I think, are very invaluable for people in the artistic realm, people kind of diving into the, I don't want to use the word spirituality, but there is that aspect, maybe the metaphysics of art and
Mhm.
what it means to survive, in this world as an artist.
Yeah, it started off as a podcast kind of, what it actually the podcast it's a Dark Art Society podcast is what it's
Right.
called. Uh it started off as me and this guy Mike Carell who directed the documentary about me just like talking about weird stuff. And then he ended up leaving the podcast, and then it was just me. So I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not good at speaking in general. So I'm especially not good at speaking, being a talking head alone.
Hmm.
So I just was like, okay, I'm going to start interviewing artists I know, and all the artists I know, most of them are kind of like dark artists. And
Yeah.
so I just started doing dark artist interviews, and then people like that even better. And then at some point, a lot of, I don't know, talk of the supernatural and magic and stuff like that started happening. And now it's like it's weird because it's like it's a podcast for artists, but it's also kind of like there's an occult angle to it. So sometimes a lot of people like Mitch Horowitz on, and so we kind of, I mean, I just talk about what I'm interested in, and art and spirituality and the occult, or whatever you want to call it, are two things I'm really interested in. So
And that's, I can't think of a more obvious confluence of things than art and magic,
yeah, right.
like,
I know. Yeah,
um
it's weird.
yeah. And you mentioned, so your ex-partner, he's the person that produced the I paint monsters, that
I like to paint
documentary.
yeah, I
Yeah,
like to
I
paint
like to paint
monsters.
monsters, which is a great documentary, beautifully put together. There is
Thanks.
one major, like, kind of spark in that, and it's you discussing manifestation when you were a kid, like that connection of
Mhm.
you and your mom having
Yeah.
that. And I find that super interesting to see the through line now, and Mitch Horowitz being such a big, figurehead and like New Thought
Right.
and that sort of thing.
That's what
So, oh, go ahead.
yeah, that's what tripped me out when I started reading. I heard him on a podcast, and I was like, "Oh, I kinda relate to this guy." And it turns out we're both close to the same age. We grew up around the same time in the '70s when all this stuff was kind of like in public consciousness. Um, and Yeah, it just that's how kind of how I got connected with him and so interested in his work, because I so related to it with because of the way my mom was, and kind of being raised with the new age version of magic, I guess you could say, which is
Yeah,
all
sure.
good. It works. It works.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of doing it.
No, absolutely. And again, like, your trajectory as an artist, like, you're going to bump into that all the time. Like, I am making manifest, dreams, visions, ideas
Yeah.
of things. And all of your stuff is so beautifully, like, intrinsically you, at the same time, which is, yeah, it's just a sight to behold.
Thank you.
But I just, yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, how cool it was to hear that those confluences, started. It wasn't that, you kind of found it on the back end, which a lot
Yeah.
of people do, which is cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
But
was
it's
lucky,
always,
lucky in that way.
yeah.
It was always it was part of my life as long as I can remember. Same with ghosts and stuff.
Yeah.
That was like part of the family lore. From my earliest memories, people talking about when my mom saw this ghost and my sister saw this weird spirit on the ceiling, and it was part of like our family history. So none of that stuff was, I don't know, it was just part of my life, my whole life. So I feel really fortunate in that way.
Yeah, there's like a romanticism too, I think, about your stuff. Um, in the sense that there is, how do I put it? It shares that same veneer of childlike wonder and awe, but it's like there's something eldritch about it as
Mm.
well, like something very, deep
It's
and
funny because somebody years ago, somebody told me my work was very romantic, and I was
mhm,
like, wow, that's the first time anybody's ever said that, and I really agree with it.
yeah,
I agree, that's a good word, as weird as it seems. If you look at my work, there is, like, kinda this romantic, feeling about it somehow,
mhm,
and I don't know if it's because I'm doing it from the heart, like, why else would you be painting shit like this? It's like,
right,
you gotta love it to paint it, 'cause it's not something that generally a lot of people are going to buy or like. So, I
yeah,
maybe that has something to do with it, but I feel like I'm trying to, like, I'm painting all these things that I loved as a kid, which is monsters and stuff and spirits, all this cool kinda stuff that, like, a lot of little kids, especially in the '70s, were into, and I try and paint it, to the best. I try and paint it so well that it kind of, like, raises its respectability, so it's like people take it seriously, like, comic books, or especially old horror comics. Those are like the stuff I grew up on. Those are not taken seriously by art academia, really. Those are considered like kid stuff and immature, but to me it meant something. So now I'm trying to recontextualize it in a fine art sense
right.
and raise it up, sort of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was gonna ask you too, because I see that as well. Like your actual methods, the fine artistry within your painting themselves, like extremely high level. Just the same with your work, and SFX and creature feature kind of makeup and
Mm,
whatnot. And it seems like a very obvious cross pollination, especially with the more like modern stuff you're doing, as
hmm
part of like your installations. But when was that like jump to, really focusing on raising the, like, fine arts of your craft?
that was I've been drawing and sculpting and everything ever since I was a kid. I was always into it, and I got really interested in effects when I was 12 years old, and then suddenly I was like, "Oh, okay, this is what I'm gonna do with my life." And I
Yeah.
put all my effort all throughout high school. I was like focusing on that. All my friends were out partying and I was sculpting,
Yeah.
total nerd out. Um, and but my stepfather was a fine artist and an illustrator, and I just saw him struggle so much. He was supporting us, and it was always feast or famine. And so fine art was like didn't even seem like an option, especially we're talking like 12 years old. What I was like 1980 or something.
Mhm.
So there just wasn't a market, especially for what I wanted to do. So I thought special effects it's practical, and I'm totally into it too. So I kind of went in that direction, and then got a job out of high school, working on some movie stuff, and just continued until around 2000. I started just becoming burnout on the process of, I don't know, I felt like I kind of reached as high as I could go in that field as a sculptor. I became a sculptor, worked
Mhm.
on a bunch of big movies and stuff, and I don't know, it's like how many times can you sculpt whatever, a fat
Sure.
makeup, or an old age makeup, or a gorilla mask, or it's just like there's these things that you are doing over and over, and it's great, and it's a fun job, but I just was like not feeling creatively satisfied. So um yeah, I think it was around 2000 uh uh I started thinking about it, because my two thing I don't know, it was a lot of things. It was like I got started getting into different painters like Mark Ryden and
Mhm.
Brahm. It's like these books were out around that time. And in the 90s, I discovered Beksinski, and I started thinking, wow, this is really amazing artwork. I didn't think you could really make a living doing this kind of artwork. This is what I want to do. And eventually I just kind of was able to start my fine art career while I was working in effects. And, it took me a couple of years to kind of get rolling. But once I sold a painting, it was just like, oh my God, I can do this. This is amazing. And then I became like even less in love with makeup effects and more in love with fine art and seeing the potential there. And then I think it was 2009, I was able to leave, leave the industry, or I got laid off, and I just didn't look for another job. I just continued going with my fine art career and been doing it ever since, pretty much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you definitely came up around the time of like Corman, and like
Hmm.
those kind of early trauma. So there was like a sub industry of sorts of like really fun,
Hmm.
creative practical effects things, but you definitely hit a level. I know my partner and good buddy Eric Millar has been a fan of yours forever, and
Oh,
he
cool.
always cites your work on the Blob remake
Hmm.
um, as some of his favorite stuff. So like you've made these kind of marks, but I get what you're saying. There's a topping off point of an industry in and of itself. Like
Yeah.
if, just to be jobbing to kind of feed, the pragmatic side, I guess,
Hmm.
within such a beautifully, anarchic kind of artistic work is it's seldom found, but I can definitely see hitting the cap of, I can't facilitate the muse anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to feel, yeah.
Exactly. And there was a lot of it was a good job. It was a good paying,
Right.
well-paying job. It was fun. Looking back, I'm kind of like, man, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have left. I was getting paid pretty well, and it was pretty easy, really, because
Right.
it's like I'd grown up doing it, and so it wasn't like a big effort. But I just had this thing in me, like I'm not being able, I can't, I'm not being able to express myself the way I want to. What maybe like when a really cool movie comes around, like the Hellboy movies, like the Hellboy 2,
I was gonna
especially,
say.
where I got to kind of design this creature. Uh, he wasn't in it for more than a few seconds, I think, but it was like I
Mhm.
had no Guillermo was totally let me just design this thing on my own, which never happens in the
It's
film
incredible.
industry. And stuff like the Tool videos also.
Mhm.
Those were like, so okay, this is my thing. I'm feeling totally satisfied doing this. Um, I'm able to kind of express my real vision inside. But those were like 2 projects over 15 or 20 years, you know? It's like they don't come around that often.
Right.
It's usually
Or
like,
like big money and backing, definitely combined with
yeah,
giving
yeah.
you free reign. Yeah.
Yeah, so I always say if there were more Adam Jones or, Guillermo del Toro's, if that's what the industry was like, then I probably would have never left. But,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that. So, yeah, so I just thought, I was gonna sculpt. I was gonna start sculpting in a fine art context. Basically, these paintings I'm doing, but as three-dimensional sculptures, realistic busts, which I am presenting them in a fine art context. And I did want the first one, and I was just like, it came out just like I wanted. It's a sculpture called Soft Spot. You could look it up on Google, and it just took too long, and it was too expensive, and it was hard to sell, and I had to charge a lot for it because it took so much effort. So I just like, okay, that's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to make a living doing this, so I'm going to switch to painting. And so I switched to painting and started teaching myself to paint, because I had a drawing background and a little bit of painting experience. And so I was able to teach myself to do that just because it was more practical. And then I fell in love with the oil painting process, and I
Yeah.
love it.
So like if I may ask, like how old were you? Like where were you in your life when you decided, I've gotta go full throttle with the painting? if I want to, make ends meet, but also kind of service the muse, as I said.
Yeah, I was like 30. I think I was 33 when I made the decision to
Hmm.
to be a fine artist, and probably, yeah, it was around 33, I think.
Yeah.
So I was like, and it was I just bought a house. It's I think my wife says it in the documentary, so it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
She was super supportive, and so it was crazy looking back at it. I had no savings or anything. It was insane. It was an insane leap of faith. But I
I
don't
feel
know.
that, yeah, that's kind of what you need. I know, and the reason why I asked that is because, like, I'm constantly up in arms about that. There's this, like, kind of forever struggle about, listen, I don't want to be the starving artist anymore, but
Yeah.
I can't help but create these things and go and bust for it.
Hmm.
And you finding that, I don't know, just that medium of, hey, I can delineate it at least to where, I can survive off of it, but I can still, service what I need to is remarkable. And I know Mitch Horowitz has said, before, he had mentioned that, he didn't write his first book until he was 40.
Right.
So there's a lot of this understanding of, this kind of, maybe, I don't want to say later years, but there's this general understanding, if you don't have it by this time, that you're not going to get it, and that's just
Yeah.
not true.
No,
you know
no. There's a lot of there's a lot of examples of I forget who. There's like famous directors like that didn't direct a movie until they're in their 50s and stuff like
right.
this, and actors that finally made it when they're in their 50s and 60s and stuff. So I think it's that's just typical mainstream culture ideas that you have to have everything figured out, but
Yeah.
when you're in your 20s, and it's like it's just not true, you
Yeah,
know.
because that they need those seeds for their own industry.
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, I love that. I just there's yeah, and I mentioned to this to you before, that there's always this pragmatism side of you, and that, you're always willing to work with or commune with mediums, um that will assist both of those things, right?
Mhm.
And you'll have your one off, as like, it's like we all do. We have our moments where you have to be bullheaded, and everything's telling you no, you're gonna go
Mhm.
broke. You
Right.
got to do those too, but like those middle times, how do I construct a life, right?
Yeah.
And support family. And I've always really appreciated you discussing that, especially for modern artists to hear.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. That's the Dark Art Society podcast is very much like I've never set out to have any kind of format really. It just kind of is one of those things that naturally developed and just happened kind of out
yeah.
of just wanting to do something like this for fun, and um help promote my artwork, and then it just turned into its own thing, and I just keep following it. And but the thing that and it's and I feel like I'm only good at um just having like honest conversations. I'm not the kind of person that can write down a script and ask questions in that way. It just won't work for me. I won't be able to do it. I'll come off like a phony or something. And so like the only thing I have to offer is just being myself. That's it. That's all I got. So I just kind of approached it that way, and it's a huge issue in my life and every artist's life that I know, is that we're always struggling for money. And so it comes up naturally because it's something that, we have to think about every day, and people don't like to talk about it or think about it.
Hmm.
Like it's bad to think about it. And I'm just like, it should be it should be like, we should all be trying to make a lot of money because we are the people that should have the money, because if we had all the fucking money, the world would be a better place, because we're
For
not
sure.
assholes, and we're not going to
Yeah.
take, we don't want to take advantage of people. And it's like, I understand money can be a corrupting force, but it's like, we're just, and we're not looking to be, I don't know one artist, a friend of mine that is looking to be a huge multi-millionaire. We're just looking to cover costs so we can keep doing our thing and live
Absolutely.
comfortably. And it's like, I just feel like that's a good thing for the world too. So I feel like we should encourage each other to be financially successful. And it's like I even feel weird saying that now because we're so, you know what I'm saying? We're
It's in
so
our bones, yeah. It's in our bones to have a weird relationship with it,
I
and,
know.
I totally get it.
So
And, like,
like,
it's something that I'm coming around. I think this day and age, vulnerability is almost like a revolutionary act in and of
mhm,
itself, to come out and be like, "Hey, I'm doing everything I can to consort, things that mean something to me, but I'm struggling,"
yeah,
instead of painting this picture that everything's working out and everything's,
yeah.
beautiful.
It flies in the face of uh Instagram influencers and
Exactly.
stuff. It's like that whole game is like, look at how great my life is, and it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Fuck, if that's what you have to do, then I just can't do it. I'm not
No.
gonna do it.
And yeah, and like, so in that process, I think one of the big things that comes up for both of us are kind of partnerships in a way. Like these boons along the road that help fortify or even help feed your own creative gusto and sustain a little bit, like your relationship with Tool, right?
Mhm,
And especially the way you were able to jump not only from the video, like SFX stuff, but to actually doing fine art for them as well. You
mhm.
know,
Yeah.
how does a relationship? And I'd be remiss for not if I didn't ask. I have so many friends that are huge, tool heads.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but like, how did that symbiosis kind of generate?
Yeah, that was, through, the makeup effects industry. I met
Yeah,
Adam Jones, the guitar player and the director of the videos, working on I think it was Swamp Thing, the cable series. I
yeah,
think that's
I
what it
love that
was
one.
in the
Yeah,
'90s. And so we just kinda hit it off because we liked different music and, we jammed one time, like, we were both trying to start bands, and so, we had a lot of common interests. Anyway, next thing I know, he had just come to work at the shop where I was kind of like a main guy, and I was there all the time, and he was, uh, floating around. In effects, you jump around to different shops unless you're
hmm,
lucky and you get a kind of a permanent position somewhere, but most people bounce around, and so he was working, at the shop I was working at, and, anyway, he was there for, I don't know, a few weeks or a couple months or something, and we became friends. Then he went back, I guess, to another shop, and just all of a sudden I hear that he quit the industry, and a couple years later, he's got this amazing band that's super popular. And so we kind of stayed in touch a little bit here and there. And then he asked me to work on one of the videos, called me up, asked me to kind of like do some fill-in work almost on the Stinkfist video.
right.
Just come and he wanted me to sculpt this back tumor puppet for
Hmm.
someone, and then go on set and do some makeup application for a day or two. And yeah, and so that was the start of it. And then after that, I did the effects for all their videos. After that, the makeup effects and puppets and stuff, and ended up doing some gig posters in the last few years and just odds and ends, stuff for
Yeah.
their old website back in the day, and animations and digital stuff. So
Yeah, I like touching on them in regards to what we were talking about, because they're definitely a prism of like carving out something themselves and
totally.
pushing on. I mean, they're industrious folks.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
So
they're
like,
super successful.
yeah,
They've done it like totally without do their own had their own vision, you
yeah,
know. The drummer's totally like a into magic too, so you gotta wonder
yep,
he must have been doing some good magic to be able to have 10 years between albums and still be a huge band.
right.
I'm always thinking it's like, I bet you Danny did something when they first started, because I don't care how amazing a band you are. It's like that's incredible to be able to wait 10 years between albums and still have that kind of fan base. It's
I mean,
amazing. There's
yeah.
no other band like that I know of.
I mean, yeah, Maynard with Jerome and, the
Yep.
winery and like just like having this to use the word again, like the symbiosis of projects that are fulfilling
Yep.
but also industrious is just it's like very yeah, it's inspiring, but it's I find it so interesting and
Yeah.
I'm so curious about, you know, I think as we were talking earlier, I think I grew up with a really bad relationship with money. Like,
Me too.
um, really didn't have it, and anytime I do have it, I give it away. Makes me
Yeah.
uncomfortable kind of a thing. And now as I'm getting older, I'm trying to, you start to look at things in more of that pragmatic sense of, how do I don't want to use I'm not talking about like fiscally investing, but more of like an energy investment into
hmm
it and understanding the cycles and rhythms and um yeah, especially for modern artists such as yourself, it's it's still like an arithmetic that is beyond me in ways.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny thing is like, I do, whatever you want to call it, manifestations, magic. I do sigil
I was gonna
stuff,
ask, yeah.
classic, sigil stuff. I've kind of developed a painting version of sigils magic that worked when I did tried it. And
Yep.
it's the funny thing is like that's 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 all for the most part, other than like, the meditation and trying to find a relationship with the muse and, you know, God or whatever you want to call it, and just
Mhm.
being connected spiritually. The practical uses of magic that I do, it's always money. It's always money. And it's like, again, I feel like a scumbag saying it. Like, it just makes me feel like, oh man, that's such a horrible thing to say, but it's the truth.
No,
And
yeah.
it's like, that's sort of, I think that's like magic. That's part of the reason magic is such an important resource for us as artists, especially as broke ass artists, is that we can use that to get money. It's like,
Yeah.
why are we all broke? Why are we not using magic to get the money we need? We should
Yeah.
all be doing that. That should be part of everybody's thing. We need to get over it. We need to get over it because, like I said, it's like we need the money not because we're greedy. We need the money because we're not greedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need the money because we're the people that would be like helping our friends and doing the right things with it and not being shitheads about it because we're not all about money. Otherwise, if we were all about money, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know
It's
what I
I
mean?
mean, it's fascinating you bring that up because there is something about yeah, I guess in a way we consider money the other. And like,
Yeah.
magic if it's, utilized to consort or commune with the other and to understand it, to have a rhythm with it. Yeah, I guess people could delineate it into power dynamics, but it's not really about that. It really is a sustainability. It's like a
Yeah.
function,
It's
you know.
survival, you
Yeah,
know?
it's
It's like we
survival.
we need it to survive. It's kinda like food and whatever. We live in America, and it's like, if you didn't have money, you're totally screwed. That's all there is to it. Nothing you can say is gonna change that, you
Yeah.
know? So it's like, okay, we've got this resource here, so we should be using it, and it's like sigils are the easiest. Anybody can do a sigil. Anytime I see an artist friend of mine, um, complaining about sales or struggling online, I'm like, "Do a sigil. Just do a sigil."
Yeah.
It's easy and it works, it's and people, like, think you're crazy if they're not into it, and then other people try it and it works, and they get back to me, they're like, "Oh, man, that's kinda scary."
Yeah. There's that old saying, there's, everybody's first sigil works. It's the
Yeah.
second one they gotta work hard
Yeah,
on.
right. It's true. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, beginner's luck, I guess. It is kinda
Yeah.
true, but,
Opens the
uh,
door. But yeah,
yeah.
it had is there like a correlation with you? I know, speaking manifestation, everyone you've talked to on the Dark Art Society podcast, like, is there a correlation or a study into maybe like the Austin Osman Spare sigilization art world? Is it more kind of a cunning kind of ingrained idea of magic that you're expelling?
Yeah, I mean, it's the the simplest. I just figure it's like, the simplest form is the Austin Osman Spare
Right.
approach. That one, Grant Morrison had that video that went viral, and it's like that's all. It's all there. It's simple. Um, but that's what's so cool about that's why I love chaos magic is like you can kind of make stuff up and I just love as artists it's just like it makes sense that
Mhm.
you can kind of I don't know it's hard for me to really I don't know get super structured with
Sure.
magic and it just feels more natural to kind of like creatively design a ritual or a spell in a way. It just seems like that personalizes it and makes it stronger. But that I think that as a base model works great,
Yeah.
you know?
If you and like you infusing it, in art, you were talking about painting sigils, and I think for folks like us that don't think of them as matter of fact, right? And
Right.
the idea of like a chaos magic sigil, what's a process like for creating one, and an artistic sigil, a fine art sigil?
It's funny, I've only I may have I don't know. I probably have done it more than once, but the basic idea I had was like, okay, I design the sigil. I get, write out the usual thing. You write out the thing that you want, cross out the consonants and repeating letters and all that stuff. Make the sigil. Um, and and then I paint it. Before I paint anything on the canvas, I paint the sigil on with the intention that uh that as I paint the painting, it takes the sigil away. So it's kind of like the burning of this,
Yeah, yeah,
you should
that's
destroy the
lovely.
sigil at the end. So as you paint it, you're destroying the sigil, and your intention is like all the effort you're putting into the painting is going towards that goal,
Mhm.
is going focusing on that sigil. Because I was thinking I put so much energy in every artist I know, put so much energy, any kind of art, you put a lot of energy into that. You're a lot of focus and energy,
Yeah,
intention of to make this thing look amazing. And so you're constantly focused on it. And so the idea was kind of like, hey, I'm painting this thing anyway. Why not put like some kind of magic intention behind the creative energy that's going into it,
yeah,
you
focus it
know?
a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And because it's like essentially if you're trying to make a living with your artwork is a sigil, a money
Mhm.
sigil. If you're
Yeah.
trying to like sell your work to live, it's already a money sigil because you're trying to make this thing amazing. It's just in a kind of a different way, more of a traditional approach. But I feel
Sure.
like it can kind of supercharge it if you put you kind of do combine it with the classic sigil technique.
Yeah, I've always thought too, because you know, um, breaking away maybe from the matter of fact of like that sigilized method that chaos magic has very much instilled in like the popular conscious, which is fantastic. I
Mm,
think yeah, my favorite part are delineating, basically distilling stories of the documentary of the atmosphere, like into an artwork. And as you're saying, it's channeling, that energy. So for, music, the sigil would be the choreography of how the instruments are laid about and like
right.
me working around them. Or, this video sigil would be, it's distilling that story. It's the intentional elements of even the technology. It's like no stone is left unturned. It's very much this um hyper manual, right? Of
Yeah.
how something is created. And
Yeah.
that's what I love about that simple idea of an art sigil, because yeah, as we said in the beginning, there's really nothing more matter of fact about magic than art itself,
Yeah.
creation of
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, it is like it was kind of a revelation to me. I don't know who I heard say it when started getting into because I was always into this stuff
Hmm.
my whole life, and it wasn't until like around I don't know over the years I've always been learning different things. You pick up books here and there, and I had this kind of like creative visualization new age technique that I was using all throughout my life. But I started looking into like ceremonial magic and stuff like around the pandemic, and really kind of like, okay, I know this stuff works. I know it's real. I'm gonna just try and learn. It's like, it was like going to school.
Yeah,
You're interested in biology kind of because you're a nerd, and then you're like, okay, I got to go to school and see how this is taught to
for
really
sure.
understand it. So I kind of took that
Yeah.
approach. And uh, what were we talking about? What was the question you asked me? I totally
Oh,
lost
like
my train of thought.
imbuing art, with like
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, and then, it was, eventually, there was I heard someone it was Alan Moore, maybe, Alan Moore, say that, I don't remember who it was. Could have been Crowley, could have been Alan Moore, but it was like, magic and art are basically the same thing. And, I'd never really thought about it like that because as artists, we take this for granted. This is something we've been doing since we were a kid, and you don't really think of it other than anything other than like, "Oh, I'm having fun making this."
right. It's
You
truly second nature. Yeah,
Yeah, but you don't think of it as like, wow, it's kind of a magical process, creating something from nothing out of your imagination. You're literally, thinking of something or channeling something and putting it physically so other people can see it. You're taking that out of your mind, and it's kind of a cool way to look at it, because it really is a magical process creating
right.
art.
And also, like the vector of what you're translating, kind of unspoken or ushered by the the receiver, right? If like you're the agent, it's almost like that ESP connection where
Hmm.
the art form itself becomes the method of reception in a
Yeah,
way. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and it's like, you know, uh I've also heard it said, like, when you get to a certain point with magic, it's not about getting things, it's about the main point. It's like getting, you can use it as a tool to get things, but the main point is you do it because it's who you are and
yes,
you like to do it. And
yep,
that's basically painting for me, art. It's like the you're doing it for its own sake. It's just that
absolutely.
we live in this world where you gotta figure out how to live on that or have another job if you were gonna do that, whatever. You have to figure out how to, navigate the world financially, but, yeah, it's if you think about for people who don't paint or don't make music and don't have that kind of, like, natural ability, it's magic to them. They're like, "How do people do that? Oh my god," and
Sure.
it's like, just like I look at mathematicians,
I
I'm
was
like,
gonna
"How do
say
they do that?" It's like
investment bankers,
yeah.
like how the
Hey, they're doing it, that's
yeah.
the thing, it's like everything is magic. Everything is
Hmm.
magic. They're doing money magic way better than we are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like we should maybe, get our shit together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you reminded me of this. Sorry, am I echoing a little?
Mm-mm.
Apologize.
No.
But you reminded me of this kind of aspect of it, especially with the I think we have there's a means of us, there's a second like a second body of which we inhabit, it and where everything it's like a super self, right? You can call it the HGA or you can call
Mhm.
it the other, but there's this obvious like communion conversation always happening. Maybe it's a little voice in your head, maybe but
Mhm.
it's like there's this innate sense of a mission or like service, even if it goes nowhere. It's like building the cathedral to nothing in a sense. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
there's this, and I've always been trying to pinpoint it, and I guess folks can term it the muse or whatever, but what I love is the daredevilness of like you jumping from a very sweet set, hey, I am working in a very artistic field, but it doesn't feel right. Like that urge to rip yourself out of that. It's there's this thing I've been thinking of like if you're really passionate about something, think about what the worst day could be, doing that thing. And if you feel like you can survive it, then yeah, maybe there you should
Right.
be listening to that. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, it's I have to say, I'm typical in the way a lot of artists are,
Mhm.
with imposter syndrome and
Sure.
things like that, and thinking about things I said that looked where I sounded really dumb at a party I went to or a show for like 2 weeks after, typical overly sensitive.
Hmm.
But I have always had I don't know what it is. I've always had this really strong belief in myself as an artist, even when I was a little kid. Like I always had the confidence, like I believed in what I was doing. Like ever since I was a kid. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
afraid to show my art. I wasn't afraid to be in like school art shows. I felt like I was in a band, I was the front man, and I'm like a
Hmm.
shy person, especially back then I was super shy, and it was like I, because I was presenting music that I believed in, the artwork I believed in, it was like I didn't feel insecure anymore about myself. It was more like I was standing behind something I believed in that
Yeah.
I thought was good. And so I've always had this kind of crazy belief in myself as an artist for whatever reason. So when it came time to like jump ship and not go look for another job when the last time I got laid off in effects, it was just like I just knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. I don't know what else to say other than like this is insane. I just believed I could do it, and I feel like it was that belief in myself that got me to where I'm doing it full time now. And it's like, not easy. It's definitely not as easy as the job I left, that's for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
way more creatively fulfilling, and it's you feel like I'm not wasting my life. That was
Yeah.
the big thing in effects. I felt like I was wasting my life
Yeah.
because I was putting all this creative energy into stuff that was like may or may not be in a good movie.
Yeah.
So many films I worked on that were just like total pieces of crap.
Hmm.
That we're all people that get into effects, at least back then, it wasn't about like, oh, this is a good career choice. It was because we were into it. Like,
Yeah.
it's a weird, obscure art form, and we were like nerdy monster kids or into horror movies and stuff. And so you build your whole life around it, get in this career, and then it's so disheartening. And then you're putting your like all your effort, you love it, you're totally into it, you want the movie to be awesome, you want the monster to be awesome, you go the extra mile and try and make this amazing monster no one's ever seen, and then it gets cut from the movie, or the movie sucks, or
Yeah.
any number of things that can happen on a film, and having that happen over and over is so disheartening. And then there's a certain point you're like, what am I doing here? I'm gonna get to a point where I'm I'm gonna retire, and I'm working on these movies that are like I don't believe in, or they're terrible and they're insulting to the audience's intelligence. It's like I don't want to be a part of that, you know?
I know what you mean about there. Even though like the preternatural side of it feels like a bottomless well, right? There is like that disgruntledness, I think, within like the somatic experience where you're just like, shit, this temporary thing is finite, or like whatever this is, like I am definitely wasting resources, whether that be time or
Yeah, yeah.
energy. Like, yeah,
It got
there is, yeah, that push.
Yeah, it got worse when I started selling too, because then I was like, "Oh, man, I just made these paintings that I thought were cool, and there was no art direction, there was no changing thing because some producer or a studio executive wanted it changed for whatever reason. There was none of that. I did it on my own accord. It's my design, my painting, and someone bought it. And at that
Lovely.
point, at that point, I was like, "Oh man, I got to get out of this business." It became even more painful to be in effects
Yeah.
at that point because I was seeing like, "Oh, there's a way out. This can work." And so every day, and so for like 7 years, I was in effects working and
Mhm.
trying to get my art, totally focusing all my extra time after work and on weekends on my fine art career. And it was so painful to go drive to work for 7 years not wanting to be there, like seeing like, oh, it's just out of reach. It's just out of
Yeah.
reach, but I can't quite afford it yet. It was rough.
I'm laughing because I'm like literally right there right now.
It's so hard, man.
Yeah.
I
It's brutal.
Yeah. I had a couple moments literally where I was like, I broke down crying in the car in traffic, because traffic is hell out here. And that
Yeah.
was part of what makes working so hell. Yeah, made it for hell for me. It's like,
Los
being in,
Angeles Transit. Oof.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a hour and a half drive back and just being like, just getting that point where like, this is so painful. It's so terrible. I see what I want and it's just out of my grasp. And I'm just being forced to grind it out every day, driving an hour and then going and doing something I didn't really want to do. And then driving back and then trying to come up with the energy to create a bunch of artwork to keep the art career going. It was like having two jobs for 7 years. It
Yeah.
was brutal, brutal.
I'd love to
Um,
ask you, because I know what that's like. I know what it's like to really work on reserve tanks of energy and
mhm.
um like yeah, it's brutal. What are like some of your kind of methodologies around your work day? Like what are some rituals that you inhabit that you found, best suit your kind of, optimum working dynamics, I guess it would be.
Yeah, I mean, the way no matter what I do, it always ends up going the way it is now, which is like, I try and do my daily meditation practice. I try and get up early. I try to go to bed early. I try and get up early. I do my meditation in the morning before I do anything, get up, take a shower, whatever. Um, and then start working in the studio or doing whatever needs to be done. And what ends up inevitably happening is that now I'm getting an echo. Okay. Whoa. You can't hear that?
Oh, let me here, I'll be right back.
Okay.
It's got little.
Hello, everybody. Am I on the show still?
There we go. Sorry about that. Could be a little
Okay.
glitch, but yeah, you were saying
Oh,
you find these like morning rituals, the
oh,
meditation.
right. Okay. Yeah. So, but what usually ends up happening is that I stay up later. I'm a night person naturally. I've always been that way since I was a little kid. And shit, I'm still getting I'm still getting
Oh no.
are you guys getting it? It's like I can deal with
Oh,
it. I
give
don't
me
know
1 second.
if YouTube's getting it, it might be kind of funky.
No, I think it's on my end. We're like delayed in two temporal zones right now. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that, folks. I'm gonna go ahead and put on a hold thing.
Okay.
Let me refresh and work this out. All right, is that still lagging a
Uh,
bit? Is there an echo?
no echo now.
Okay.
Yeah, still there.
Ah,
It's like it's not bad for me. I just want to make sure it's not like YouTube's not hearing it.
yeah. Give me 1 second.
This is why I wear headphones. Okay, they hear it, so that's good.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay, is it?
Yeah,
is
it looks like my internet's just eating. There we go. Eating hard.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
no.
Shit. Sorry, that's my. It's so funny. I was like, no, I still hear it, but it was YouTube because I opened YouTube to look at the.
Oh,
Okay, now we're good, right?
Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
that's why we edit this down and
Right.
for wide release as a podcast and all that.
Yep.
So
That's smart.
give me 1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and come back in just to make sure. I apologize to everybody. Obviously my internet god's communication did not work out today. All right. There. That should be better.
Okay, good. Hey, we roll with it.
You're
Okay.
still on a delay. I don't know what happened. If it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know. But anyways, if the echo isn't annoying,
Yeah, I don't
let me
I don't
know.
okay. We'll just keep going. What I was saying was like my optimal my optimal kind of oh shit. It's going again. Hello?
So I wonder if it's on your end too, because I can see me fine, like I'm coming in fine. You're just on a delay for some reason. I don't know. If you want to try refreshing the browser and coming back, that'll be like the kind of Hail Mary because I just switched internets and did all the things. So
okay, I'll try. Give me a sec.
All right. Don't worry, folks. I remember exactly what we were talking about, and I apologize again. I think there's multiple Mary working on stuff in the other room. So let's see. Hello, hello.
Hello. How is it?
Oh, we had you. And then it's there it goes.
Yeah. We good?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, okay.
All right.
Back into what I was saying. Like I try and go to bed early. I try and get up early. I do my meditation. Any kind of like special magical thing I want to accomplish, I'll do. And then I'll deal with like emails and printing out labels or whatever business stuff I need to do. And then I try and paint for the rest of the day. But what ends up always happening is I end up having to hustle for painting for an art show, and I end up staying up till 3 a.m. every night and then sleeping in, and then basically I end up painting at night and doing business in the day, and it's kind of the way it works, so it's kind of like
Yeah.
I'm always battling between what I should be doing, which is going to bed early, getting up early, and then like what I have to do in order to just kind of make the work happen.
Yeah. I love that. So, when the big struggle, it seems to be, and I have this with myself, is how to ordain a day. Like, what's the ritualistic kind of perspective that will help soothe my own mercurial habits, like my emotions of the day, like how I'm feeling, do I want to do this? Like, have you found other tools or tactics for the motivations to be like a self-employed, kind of artist?
Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to be your own boss. That's something I never really expected. It's like it's hard to make yourself do stuff you don't want to do, and I don't know. In general, meditating every day is what the big thing that helps me. My wife says I'm a lot more calm and together when I meditate daily. So that's kind of like the catch-all thing I do. Just meditate.
I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna refresh one more time.
Okay.
And yeah, because there is a little bit of a lag.
Yeah, I can hear it again. I
Really
can hear the
embarrassed.
echo.
I'll
I
be
can
right
hear
back.
the echo again. So
Yeah. Yeah, here's another thing. Paying for internet that doesn't work when you need it.
that goes back to the money thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but hopefully this is better. Um, but yeah, I think the big thing, I was talking to Eric Arneson of the Arnemancer podcast, who's been doing freelance for a long time. I've been doing, freelance when I can, but had to recently go into kind of a go into the industry, right?
Hmm.
Full time, and it's something that I'm trying to consort like resources or ideas to kind of get me prepared to jump back into freelancing. And he was saying you just got to make the leap. Like you have to just jump into it.
Yeah, that's my friend Gabe Leonard, who's very successful painter. He's like, he's always saying you don't have a backup plan, which is kind of crazy and irresponsible to say, but it's sort of true. It's like, because if you have to make it, then you'll make yourself make it. You know what I mean? If you have no other choice, it's like you'll figure it out, which is, kind of what I did in a way, but at the same time, I got pushed out. I sort of I got laid off, and I don't know that I would have had the guts to just stop. You know, um, I don't know. Yeah, don't have a backup plan.
Yeah. Don't have a backup plan. I know. It's like it's really hard because we want to be pragmatists about it. I don't want to get into another, like my entire 20s was rough. Absolutely lost, starving,
Mm,
disgruntled, terrible. It's like I went through that. I know what not to do anymore. So there's almost an urge to go so hard the other way so that doesn't happen. So it's
right.
like mediating, those
Yeah.
two trajectories. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to find a balance with that. But I don't know. A lot of it has to do with age too. I think you have a certain
Yeah.
amount of experiences, and you kind of like equalize a bit. It comes with time and age, and there's nothing you can really do about it except live your life and do your best, and hope for the best. Things will kind of equal out eventually.
Yeah. Well, Chet, I mean, I really love this conversation. My internet is just not allowing. Uh, oh, wait, here we go. I don't know if you can see this on my end because we seem like we're in two separate time zones right now, but we'll kind of push through these a little bit.
Okay.
Michael Wright says Chet's supposed to be working on my tools poster. Let's wrap this up. Hey, you
I do.
are you screwing with my internet, Michael?
I do poster doodles on the side from the poster. People send me their posters, and I doodle on them as a way to make a little money. That's the thing. It's like you also got to be willing to sort of
Yeah.
do whatever it takes. You got to hustle different little side gigs in order to make it work. Do conventions or whatever. There's like you got to be willing to do. Yeah, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. That's my attitude with it. I was like, I'm gonna make this work if it kills me. Literally, if it like makes me die, I'm still gonna I'm gonna do it, even if it kills me. And so,
Amen.
it's like
Yeah, and
I'm willing to do
these
whatever comes my way
yeah.
that I can do, that I think I'm gonna do a good job at.
I'm a big fan of your Patreon too. Patreon.com/Chet Zar. That's just a
Thank you.
wealth of not only your process, but you also do commissions and stuff through there. And Patreon really has been a blessing, I think, for us kind of working artist types.
Yeah, it's
So that's
amazing.
great. Are there other avenues where folks can help, fund your works or connect with you?
Yeah, Patreon is the main one because it's got such a low barrier of entry. It's only like you can join for $1 and get connected with that community of people that are fans of mine and that like this kind of artwork. And also the Dark Art Society podcast is on YouTube. I'm really trying to build that up. So it's just I think it's at Dark Art Society podcast. And we have a Patreon for that, which is patreon.com/Dark Art Society. And that also has the $1 a month entry level. And yeah, those are the main things. I'm at Chet Zar, ChetZar, on pretty much whatever platforms I'm on, Instagram and Twitter and Threads and whatever.
Yeah.
So those are pretty much it.
I love it. Yeah. Again, big fan. I really wanted to talk to you about so much other things, but I feel like this is with this Medusa's head star Algol or whatever in the astrological constellation. I think it's
Hey,
it's like just add it on.
yeah.
If it's not being a struggling artist, we got to work with freaking astrology and the internet and all this other
Yeah.
ethereal bullshit.
Well, we could do it again sometime. I'm happy to come back on if you want. Have a longer conversation.
I would love that. Yeah, because there's a big component I wanted to talk to you, especially about kind of the avenues of the modern world and AI and all that real fun stuff. But I think it's best suited for its own discussion. So thank you so much for stopping by, and yeah, I'm really excited to get this out to more people because more people need to hear about not only your story but like the realities of what a modern artist is like, and we need to be more vulnerable about those things.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it, except for the echo at the end. It was a blast.
I hope it's not picking up an echo too bad, because that's going to be a real pain in the ass to edit. So
Yeah,
anyways,
good luck with that. No, it was super fun though. I enjoyed it.
just my luck, right? Cool, man. Yeah, thank you again. And yeah, let's do this again soon. I owe you. Sorry everybody about the weird internet hiccups. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Well, big love to everybody, and haunt on.